They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. A few years ago, I purchased a picture of Jesus sitting, looking at the city of Jerusalem, and there's a sad expression on his face as he's looking at the city, and it's telling us in picture form what Jesus perhaps thought as he lamented over the city of Jerusalem. Luke's gospel records Jesus lamenting over Jerusalem at the end of chapter 13, and later in chapter 19, as he approaches the city, he weeps over the city. But in Luke 13, he made this statement about Jerusalem. "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, but you were not willing." Each of us has a perspective of our own life, but God has his own unique perspective of how our lives are to be. And if we were to be in Jesus' position and to see our lives from his viewpoint, I wonder how different things might look. Jesus lamented over Jerusalem because God desired so much for his people, and yet they had chosen a different path. What about our lives? God desires to gather us as well, and yet is there an unwillingness in our hearts? Are we seeking to do our own thing? When we consider how our lives look from heaven's perspective, how far out of alignment are we from God's will? Jesus goes on to state this pronouncement of judgment. He says, "See, your house is left to you desolate, and assuredly I say to you, you shall not see me until the time comes when you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Jesus was quoting from Psalm 118. It's one of the Hallel Psalms. They sang these Hallel Psalms at the major Jewish feasts each year. And this particular psalm, which states, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," is a specific prophecy. It's a specific blessing that is prophesying of Jesus Christ, the Messiah. John's gospel says in chapter 1, he came unto his own, but his own received him not. When God has so much that he desires for us, but we don't receive him, then we bring this judgment upon ourselves. There's a desolation, as it were, that comes into our lives, comes to our household. And God doesn't want that. That's not God's will. What does it mean, though, to say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord? Is it just a word we say? Is it just lip service to God? Of course, we can never just give lip service to God. This is actually making room for God's will and God's purposes to invade our lives, to intrude into our lives, to interrupt the direction that we've chosen for our lives so that God can establish his purposes in our lives. As I look over the city and we just see all of these homes, and there are people who live in all these homes, and we can wonder about each of their lives and how are they living their lives and how are they seeking guidance for their lives. And us too. Every person has been given this gift of life who's living, and yet we need to consult heaven. We need to say, as Psalm 118 says, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. This is both a longing for the second coming of Christ, but it's also an invitation for God's will and God's purposes to be established in our daily lives.